Acute myeloid leukemia. So, acute myeloid leukemia. So, this is a neoplasm which is characterized by infiltration of the blood, bone marrow, and other tissues by proliferative, clonal, poorly differentiated cells of the hematopoietic system. So, this is a neoplasm. So, wherein it is characterized by infiltration of the blood, bone marrow, and other tissues. So, what is infiltrating? Proliferative, clonal, poorly differentiated cells. Proliferative, clonal, poorly differentiated cells of the hematopoietic system. So, these leukemias, they comprise a spectrum of malignancies. So, that untreated, so these are uniformly fatal. So, this is about acute myeloid leukemia. So, etiology. So, most cases of AML are idiopathic. Most cases are idiopathic. Genetic predisposition, radiation, chemical or other occupational exposures, and drugs. So, they have been implicated in development of AML. But AML cases with established etiology are relatively rare. So, if we take this genetic predisposition, radiation, chemical, or other occupational exposure and drugs have been implicated. But so these AML cases with established etiology are relatively rare, and there is no direct evidence which suggests that this patient has got a viral etiology. And genome sequencing studies suggest that so if genome sequencing studies what does they suggest? They suggest that most cases of AML, so they arise from a limited number of mutations that accumulate with advancing age. So this genome sequencing studies, they suggest that most cases of AML, so they arise from a limited number of mutations. So these limited number of mutations, so they are accumulating with advancing age. So as age is progressing, mutations are accumulating. So indeed, genome sequencing is providing paradigm shifting advances in our understanding of leukemogenesis. So genome sequencing. So this genome sequencing, so this is making our understanding of leukemogenesis better. So then we have this Cancer Genome Atlas. Cancer Genome Atlas and other databases, they demonstrate that blood cells from up to 5 to 6% of normal individuals aged greater than 70 years. So the Cancer Genome Atlas and other databases, what does they demonstrate? They demonstrate that blood cells from up to 5 to 6% of normal individuals aged greater than 70 years, they contain potentially pre-malignant mutations. So age greater than 70 years, 5 to 6% of normal individuals. So they contain pre-malignant mutations, so they are associated with clonal expansion. So even in normal individuals, up to 5 to 6% of normal individuals. So use of the term pre-malignant to describe these lesions is not precisely accurate. Rather, these mutations, they represent, so these mutations, pre-malignant is not accurate, but these mutations, they represent clonal hematopoiesis of indeterminate potential. So this is called as CHIP, or sometimes it is also called as age-related clonal hematopoiesis. So rather, these mutations, they represent clonal hematopoiesis of indeterminate potential. Sometimes these are also called as age-related clonal hematopoiesis. So the genes most commonly altered include the epigenetic regulators DNMT3A, TET2 and ASXL1. So what are the genes which are most commonly altered? The genes most commonly altered include the what are the genes most commonly altered? So these include the epigenetic regulators. So what are these epigenetic regulators? DNMT3A, TET2 and ASXL1. The genes which are most commonly altered include the epigenetic regulators DNMT3A, TET2 and ASXL1. So study of CHIP is important because CHIP has relevance not just to blood cancer evolution but also other medical conditions. See, why study of CHIP is important? It has got relevance not only to the blood cancer but it is also to the other medical conditions. So this clonal expansion, because of this acquisition of new mutations, clonal expansion, so this is associated with a 10-fold increased risk for developing a hematological malignancy compared to matched patients without CHIP. But it is clear that additional hits must occur to drive towards leukemia. So apart from this CHIP, there should be additional hits which will drive towards the leukemia. So this acquisition of new mutations, this is associated with a 10-fold increase in risk for developing a hematological malignancy. We do not yet fully understand why or how these secondary lesions occur. So patients with CHIP, apart from malignancy, they also have increased risk of cardiovascular mortality. Not only hematological malignancy, they also have increased risk of cardiovascular mortality, and this is not fully explained. So the link between these two seemingly unrelated. What is the link? Cardiovascular and hematological malignancy, cardiovascular symptoms and hematological malignancy. So this lies in understanding the interactions between circulating clonally expanded blood cells and vascular epithelium. So this seemingly unrelated issues, cardiovascular and hematological malignancy, so they lie in understanding the interactions between the circulating clonally expanded blood cells and vascular endothelium. So a pro-inflammatory state, it is caused by clonal infiltrating monocytes. So the clonal infiltrating monocytes, they cause a pro-inflammatory state. So this leads to accelerated atherosclerotic plaque development and altered cardiac remodeling. So a pro-inflammatory state, it is caused by clonal infiltrating monocytes. So this will lead to accelerated atherosclerotic plaque development and altered cardiac remodeling. Similar phenomenon may occur in the marrow and blood. Altered relationship between hematopoietic stem cells with the microenvironment, marrow microenvironment, along with altered immune surveillance. So both increase the likelihood that a clone may survive, acquire additional mutations. So what happens? So similar phenomenon also occurs in the marrow and blood. So altered relationship between the hematopoietic stem cells and with the marrow microenvironment. So these likelihood that a clone will survive, it will acquire additional mutations, and then this clone, it will expand eventually, which is leading to leukemia. So whether early identification of CHIP in patients will provide therapeutic opportunities for patients remains to be seen. So if we identify this CHIP early, can it provide therapeutic opportunities for patients? So it remains to be seen. And certainly modifying cardiovascular risk in patients with the CHIP seems prudent, but development of mutation directed therapies to eliminate problematic clones to prevent leukemia is likely to be more elusive. And then genetic predisposition. Myeloid neoplasms, they typically occur sporadically in adults. Inherited predisposition is rare. So these myeloid neoplasms, they occur sporadically. Inherited predisposition is rare. Yet it is clear that myeloid neoplasms with germline predisposition, so this represents an important and growing subset of disease. So myeloid neoplasms with germline predisposition, so this is an important and growing subset of disease. So germline mutations associated with increased risk of developing. So what are the germline mutations which are associated with increased risk of developing a myeloid neoplasm? So these germline mutations are CBPA, CE, BPA, DDX41, rungs 1, ANKR D26, ETV6 and GATA2. What are the germline mutations associated with increased risk of developing a myeloid neoplasm? So these include CE, BPA, DDX41, rungs 1, ANKR D26, ETV6 and GATA2. Likewise, myeloid neoplasms with germline predisposition or a feature of myeloid neoplasms which are having this germline predisposition. So this is a feature of several well-described clinical syndromes. So what are the different well-described clinical syndromes? Including bone marrow failure disorders. Example, Fanconi's anemia, Schwarzman-Diamond syndrome, Diamond-Blackfan anemia and telomere biology disorders. Example, disc keratosis congenita. So likewise, myeloid neoplasms with germline predisposition, no? So they are a feature of several well-described clinical syndromes. So what are these clinical syndromes? Bone marrow failure disorders. Example, Fanconi's anemia, Schwarzman-Diamond syndrome, Diamond-Blackfan anemia and telomere biology disorders. Example, disc keratosis congenita. As new mutations and associations are added to a rapidly growing list, it is increasingly clear that genetic predisposition plays a larger role than has been previously understood. So as new mutations and associations are added to the rapidly growing list, so it is increasingly clear that genetic predisposition, no? So this plays a larger role than has been previously understood. So several genetic syndromes with somatic cell chromosome aneuploidy such as Down syndrome with trisomy 21, so they are associated with an increased incidence of AML. So several genetic syndromes with somatic cell chromosome aneuploidy such as Down syndrome with trisomy 21. So this is somatic cell chromosome aneuploidy. So they are also associated with an increased incidence of AML. Down syndrome associated AML in young children less than 4 years is typically of the acute megakaryocytic subtype, and this is associated with mutation in the GATA1 gene. So Down syndrome, no, associated AML. So Down syndrome in children, so this AML occurs in young children less than 4 years. So what is the variety? It is acute megakaryocytic subtype. And what is the mutation? So here it is the GATA1 gene. So these such patients have excellent clinical outcomes, but they require dose modification of chemotherapy due to high treatment related toxicity. So these patients, no, they have got excellent clinical outcomes, but what does they require? Dose modification of chemotherapy due to high treatment related toxicities. And inherited diseases with defective DNA repair. What are the inherited diseases with defective DNA repair? So these includes Fanconi's anemia, Bloom syndrome and ataxia telangiectasia. So these are also associated with AML. Inherited diseases with defective DNA repair. So these include Fanconi's anemia, Bloom syndrome and ataxia telangiectasia, AB, ataxia telangiectasia, Bloom syndrome and Fanconi's anemia. So these are also associated with AML. So each syndrome is associated with unique clinical features and atypical toxicities with chemotherapy. So this require expert care. So each syndrome, no, it is associated with unique clinical features and they have this atypical toxicities with chemotherapy. So that is why expert care is needed. Congenital neutropenia, that is Cosman syndrome. So this is due to mutations in the genes encoding the granulocyte colony stimulating factor receptor and neutrophil elastase. So it is another disorder. So then we have this congenital neutropenia, Cosman syndrome. So this congenital neutropenia, Cosman syndrome, so this is due to mutations in the genes encoding the granulocyte colony stimulating factor receptor and neutrophil elastase. So this is another disorder. So this may evolve into AML. Chemicals, radiation and other exposures and anti-cancer drugs. So these are the leading cause of therapy associated AML. So then chemicals, radiation and anti-cancer drugs. So these are also the other so these are also the other other causes which can cause AML. Alkylating agent associated leukemias occur on average 4 to 6 years after exposure, and see, if alkylating agents are used, so they can cause this AML 4 to 6 years after giving this alkylating agents, and these affected individuals often have this multi-lineage dysplasia and monosomy or aberrations in chromosome 5 and 7. So if we give alkylating agents, they can have multi-lineage dysplasia, and they can have monosomy, or they can have aberrations in the chromosomes 5 and 7. Then we have topoisomerase 2 inhibitor associated leukemias. Alkylating agent means after 4 to 6 years. Topoisomerase 2 inhibitor associated leukemias. So if we give this topoisomerase 2 inhibitor, so these associated leukemias, they occur 1 to 3 years after exposure, and then affected individuals often have AML with monocytic features and aberrations involving the chromosome 11q23. Topoisomerase 2 means 11q23. Alkylating agent means aberrations in chromosome 5 and 7, and exposure to ionizing radiation, benzene, chloramphenicol, phenylbutazone, and other drugs, so they can uncommonly result in bone marrow failure. So this can evolve into AML. So then we also have this exposure to ionizing radiation, benzene, chloramphenicol, phenylbutazone, and other drugs, so they can uncommonly result in bone marrow failure. So this can evolve into AML. So this is a WHO 2016 classification of myeloid neoplasms with germline predisposition. So myeloid neoplasms with germline predisposition without a pre-existing disorder. So there is no pre-existing disorder. So AML with germline CEBPA mutation, and with germline DDX41 mutation B. Okay, so lymphoid neoplasms also reported. So this with germline DDX41, what else is reported? Even lymphoid neoplasms are also reported with germline predisposition, and patient are also having pre-existing platelet disorders. So these are the mutations with pre-existing. They are also having pre-existing platelet disorders like RUNX1, ANKRD26 and ETV6. RUNX1, ANKRD26 and ETV6. CEBPA, DDX41, DCCD. Okay, here we have this year. Okay, year means ETV6, ANKRD26, RUNX1. And myeloid neoplasms with germline predisposition and other organ dysfunctions like germline GATA2 and associated with bone marrow failure syndromes, telomere biology disorders, Noonan syndrome and Down syndrome. Payments, even lymphoid neoplasms are also associated. So here even lymphoid neoplasms are also associated. With germline predisposition and other organ dysfunction like germline GATA2, bone marrow failure syndromes, telomere biology disorders, Noonan syndrome and Down syndrome. So recognition of familial myeloid neoplasms require that physicians take a thorough patient and family history to assess for the typical signs and symptoms of known syndromes, including data on malignancies and previous bleeding episodes. Recognition of, if we have to recognize a familial myeloid neoplasm, so patient history, family history for typical signs and symptoms of known syndromes, along with the data on malignancies and previous bleeding episodes should be taken. So this molecular genetic diagnostics, so this is guided by a detailed patient and family history. So this diagnostic should be in close collaboration with a genetic counselor. So patients with a suspected heritable myeloid neoplasm who test negative for known predisposition genes should ideally be entered on a research study to facilitate new syndrome discovery. So patients with a suspected heritable myeloid neoplasm who test negative for known predisposition gene, they should ideally be entered on a research study to facilitate new syndrome discovery, and lymphoid neoplasms are also reported. Then we have the clinical presentation. Symptoms. So patients with AML, they usually present with non-specific symptoms. So they begin gradually or abruptly, and so these are the consequence of anemia, leukocytosis, leukopenia or leukocyte dysfunction, or thrombocytopenia. Patients with AML, no, they usually present with non-specific symptoms. So these symptoms, no, either they can occur gradually or abruptly. So they can have this anemia, leukocytosis, leukopenia, or leukocyte dysfunction, or thrombocytopenia. So nearly half have symptoms for less than or equal to 3 months before the leukemia is diagnosed. So before leukemia is diagnosed, nearly half have symptoms for less than or equal to 3 months. So fatigue is a frequent first symptom among AML patients. So among AML patients, fatigue is a frequent first symptom. Anorexia and weight loss are common. Anorexia and weight loss are common. Fever with or without an identifiable infection is the initial symptom in 10% of the patients. Fever with or without an identifiable infection. So this is the initial symptom. Signs of abnormal hemostasis, bleeding, easy bruising are common. So what are the signs of abnormal hemostasis? Bleeding, easy bruising are common. Bone pain, lymphadenopathy, non-specific cough, headache, or diaphoresis may also occur. Bone pain, lymphadenopathy, non-specific cough, headache, or diaphoresis may also occur. Rarely, patients may present with symptoms from a myeloid sarcoma. So apart from this, patients they can present with symptoms from a myeloid sarcoma, that is a tumor mass consisting of myeloid blast occurring in anatomic sites other than the bone marrow. Other than bone marrow, patients can have symptoms from a myeloid sarcoma. So in this myeloid sarcoma, a tumor mass will be there, and this consists of myeloid blast. So sites involved are most commonly, what are the sites which are most commonly involved? The skin, lymph node, gastrointestinal tract, soft tissue, and testis. What are the sites for this myeloid sarcoma? Skin, lymph node, gastrointestinal tract, soft tissue, and testis. Soft tissue, gastrointestinal tract, skin, and lymph nodes. So this rare presentation often characterized by chromosome aberrations, monosomy 7, trisomy 8, 11q23 rearrangement, inversion 16, trisomy 4, T821 may precede or coincide with blood or marrow involvement by AML. So this rare presentation, no? So this is characterized by chromosome aberrations. So what are the chromosome aberrations? Monosomy 7, trisomy 8, monosomy 7, trisomy 8, 11q23 rearrangement, 11q23 rearrangement, inversion 16, trisomy 4, translocation 821. So this may precede or coincide with blood and or marrow involvement by AML. Patients who present with isolated myeloid sarcoma typically develop blood or bone marrow involvement quickly thereafter and cannot be cured with local therapy, radiation, or surgery alone. So when patients develop this myeloid sarcoma, so they quickly develop this blood or bone marrow involvement which cannot be cured with local therapy. So what are the physical findings? So physical findings will be fever, infection, and hemorrhage. So these are found at the time of diagnosis. At diagnosis, fever, infection, and hemorrhage, splenomegaly, hepatomegaly, lymphadenopathy, and bone pain may also be present less commonly. and hemorrhagic complications are most commonly and classically found in APL. So in acute promyelocytic leukemia, hemorrhagic complications are most commonly seen, and APL patients often present with DIC associated minor hemorrhage, but they can also have significant gastrointestinal bleeding, intrapulmonary hemorrhage or intracranial hemorrhage. So this APL patients, they present with DIC associated minor hemorrhage, but they may have significant gastrointestinal bleeding, intrapulmonary hemorrhage or intracranial hemorrhage. Likewise, thrombosis is another less frequent but well recognized clinical feature of DIC in APL. Apart from hemorrhage, thrombosis is another less frequent, but it is also a well recognized clinical feature of DIC in acute promyelocytic leukemia. So bleeding associated with coagulopathy may also occur in monocytic AML and with extreme degree of leukocytosis or thrombocytopenia in other morphological subtypes. So bleeding associated with coagulopathy. So this may also occur in monocytic acute myeloid leukemia and with extreme degrees of leukocytosis or thrombocytopenia in other morphological subtypes. So retinal hemorrhages, they are detected in 15% of patients. Retinal hemorrhages in 15%. Infiltration of the gingiva, skin, soft tissues or meninges with leukemic blast diagnosis is characteristic of the monocytic subtypes and those with 11q23. So patients who are having a monocytic subtype and those who are having this 11q23 chromosome abnormality, so they have the infiltration of the gingiva, skin, soft tissue or meninges with leukemic blast at the diagnosis. And so even in monocytic AML, bleeding associated with coagulopathy can also occur. And hematological findings. So anemia, so this is usually present at diagnosis, but it is not typically severe. What are the hematological findings? Anemia will be there. So this anemia, it is usually normocytic, normochromic. So the anemia here is normocytic, normochromic. Decreased erythropoiesis in the setting of AML. So in the setting of AML, what will happen? There will be decreased erythropoiesis. So this will result in reduced reticulocyte count and red blood survival is decreased by accelerated destruction. So if there is a decreased erythropoiesis, this results in a reduced reticulocyte count, and even RBC survival, it is decreased by accelerated destruction and even active blood loss. So this rarely contributes to the anemia. So why anemia is occurring means it's a normocytic, normochromic anemia, decreased erythropoiesis is there, reduced reticulocyte count and RBC survival is also decreased, and active blood loss also leads to anemia. The median presenting leukocyte count is 15,000 per microliter. What is the median presenting leukocyte count? It is 15,000 per microliter. Lower presenting leukocyte counts are more typical of older patients and those with antecedent hematological disorder. Presenting count is 15,000, but leukocyte counts will be low in patients, older patients and those who are having this antecedent hematological disorder. Between 25 and 40% of patients, they have counts less than 5,000 per microliter, and 20% they have counts greater than 1 lakh per microliter. So it depends. Few patients, 25 to 50%, they have counts less than 5,000, and 20% they have counts greater than 1 lakh, and fewer than 5% have no detectable leukemic cells in the blood, and few patients, they don't have any leukemic cells in the blood. And in AML, the cytoplasm thus often contains primary non-specific granules, So in AML, what will happen? The cytoplasm, so this often contains primary non-specific granules, and the nucleus, it will show fine lacy chromatin. Nucleus, how will the nucleus be in AML? So it will show a fine lacy chromatin with one or more nucleoli. So this is characteristic of immature cells. Immature cells means nucleus will be showing a fine lacy chromatin with one or more nucleoli, characteristic of immature cells. And the cytoplasm contains primary non-specific granules. Abnormal rod-shaped granules called OR rods, they are not uniformly present, but when they are, AML is virtually certain. So if OR rods are not uniformly present, so abnormal rod-shaped granules. So what are these granules? Rod-shaped granules. So this AML is virtually certain, and platelet counts less than 1 lakh or found a diagnosis in 75% of patients, and 25% have counts less than 25,000 per microliter. Platelet counts less than 1 lakh or found a diagnosis in 75% of patients, and 25% have counts less than 25,000 per microliter. Both morphological and functional platelet abnormalities can be observed. Even the morphology and even the function abnormality of platelets is seen, and large and bizarre shapes with abnormal granulation. So how will the platelets be? So they will be large and including large and bizarre shape of the platelets, and these will have abnormal granulation and inability of the platelets to aggregate or adhere normally to one another. So these platelets, they have the inability to aggregate or adhere normally to one another. So morphology of acute uniform population of primitive myeloblasts. So they'll be having the immature chromatin, nucleoli in some cells, and primary cytoplasmic granules. Leukemic myeloblast containing OR rod. So this is the OR rod. And then promyelocytic leukemic cells with prominent cytoplasmic primary granules. So in promyelocytic leukemia, there will be cytoplasmic primary granules and peroxidase stain. So this peroxidase stain, it is showing the dark blue. So why this dark blue color? So this is because of the peroxidase in granules in AML. So because of the peroxidase in the granules in AML, so this is showing a dark blue color, characteristic of peroxidase of granules in AML. And then what is the pre-treatment evaluation? So once a diagnosis of AML is suspected, so thorough evaluation and initiation of appropriate therapy. So diagnosis, so we have to properly evaluate. So we have to clarify the subtype of leukemia. After clarifying the subtype of leukemia, we should also evaluate the integrity of the other organ systems, not only leukemia, but we also have to look for cardiovascular, pulmonary, hepatic and renal systems. So factors that have prognostic significance either for achieving complete remission or for complete remission duration should also be assessed before initiating treatment, including cytogenetics and molecular markers. So factors which are having prognostic significance, so that should also be evaluated before initiating treatment, like cytogenetics and molecular markers. That is, poor prognosis means it has got a poor cytogenetics, it has got a bad prognosis. And leukemic cells should be obtained from all patients and renal systems. And factors that have prognostic significance, leukemic cells should be obtained from all leukemic cells should be obtained from all patients. Leukemic cells should be obtained from all patients, and so these are cryopreserved for future investigational testing as well as potential future use. And all patients should also be evaluated for infection. So during the ongoing pandemic, so this has to be tested for SARS-CoV-2 and before initiation of chemotherapy. So most patients are anemic and thrombocytopenic at presentation, so PRBC and platelet transfusion should be given. And because qualitative platelet dysfunction or presence of infection may increase the likelihood of bleeding. So if there is any infection or if there is a qualitative platelet, not quantitative, qualitative, so this will increase the likelihood of bleeding, so evidence of hemorrhage. So this justifies the immediate use of platelet transfusion. So even though the platelet count is only moderately decreased, not severely decreased, but because there will be a qualitative platelet dysfunction, so transfusion can be advised. And about 50% of the patients, they have mild to moderate elevation of serum uric acid at presentation. Only 10% will have marked elevations, but renal precipitation of uric acid and nephropathy may result. It's a serious but uncommon complication. So 50% they can also have this elevated uric acid, 10% will have marked elevation. The initiation of chemotherapy, so it aggravates hyperuricemia, and patients are usually started immediately on allopurinol and hydration. So what should be done? Patient should be given hydration, and they should be started immediately on allopurinol, because if we start chemotherapy, so it will aggravate hyperuricemia. So then we have this RAS buricase. It's a recombinant uric oxidase, RAS buricase. So this RAS buricase, it is a recombinant uric oxidase. So this is also useful for treating uric acid nephropathy, and this often can normalize the serum uric acid level within hours as a single dose of treatment. So if we give the single dose of RAS buricase, so this is also useful for treating the uric acid nephropathy, and this often can normalize the serum uric acid level within hours after a single dose of treatment. Although its expense suggests that limiting its use to patients with severe hyperuricemia and or kidney injury may be prudent. And the presence of high concentration of lysozyme, a marker for monocytic differentiation, may be etiologic in renal tubular dysfunction for a minority of patients. So if we have high concentration of lysozyme, so this is a marker for monocytic differentiation. So this may be etiologic in renal tubular dysfunction for a minority of patients. So what is the initial diagnostic and management of adult patient? So history has to be taken: increased fatigue or decreased exercise tolerance, bleeding, thrombocytopenia, fever or recurrent infections, neutropenia and headache, vision changes, non-focal neurological abnormalities. So patient can have CNS leukemia or bleed, headache, vision changes, early satiety, splenomegaly, family history of AML, that is Fanconi's, Bloom's, Costman or ataxia telangiectasia, ABKF, okay, ataxia telangiectasia. AML means you have to remember ataxia telangiectasia, Bloom syndrome, Fanconi's anemia or Costman syndrome, and history of cancer, exposure to alkylating agents, radiation, topoisomerase II inhibitors, and occupational exposures like radium, benzene, petroleum product, paint, smoking, and pesticides. Physical examination, performance status, ecchymosis and oozing from IV sites, DIC, possibly acute promyelocytic leukemia if there are any signs of infection, and papilledema, retinal infiltrates or cranial abnormalities. All this suggest CNS leukemia, poor dentition, dental abscess. Gum hypertrophy, it is because of leukemic infiltration. So this gum hypertrophy, leukemic infiltration, so this is most commonly seen in monocytic leukemia. And if there are any skin infiltration or nodules, so that also has to be checked. So leukemic infiltration of the skin, so this is most common in monocytic leukemia. And whether there is any lymphadenopathy, splenomegaly, hepatomegaly, and back pain or any lower extremity weakness. So spinal granulocytic sarcoma, so this is most likely seen in translocation 821 patients. Spinal granulocytic sarcoma, no, so this is most likely seen in translocation 821 patients, spinal granulocytic sarcoma. Skin infiltration or nodules, leukemia infiltration, most common in monocytic leukemia. Then we have laboratory studies, CBC, electrolytes, creatinine, calcium, phosphorus, uric acid, LDH, amylase, lipase, PT, partial thromboplastin time, fibrinogen, viral serologies, CMV, HS1, varicella zoster, RBC type and screening, HLA typing, bone marrow aspirate and biopsy for morphology, cytogenetics for flow cytometry, molecular studies for NPM1, CE-BPA mutations and FLT3-ITD, NPM1, CE-BPA mutations and FLT3-ITD, cryopreservation of viable leukemia cells, echocardiogram or MUGA scan, myocardial function scan, chest radiograph and placement of central venous access device,